to tell you that I've never auditioned an actor. I don't audition actors or actresses because I find, I don't know if any of you have ever auditioned for a role in a play or a film. It's a very traumatic process. And I understand that. And I don't want to put people through that. What I do instead is I go totally on my instinct. For example, with a film I made called The French Connection. Have any of you seen The French Connection? Okay. If you haven't, get the hell out of here. With The French Connection, I had a wonderful casting director named Bob Weiner. He wasn't a casting director. He was a film and theater critic for the Village Voice in New York. And he knew every actor that was around. He actually discovered people like Whoopi Goldberg and brought them to the attention of producers. And Bob Weiner cast The French Connection for me. And he and I, we had a shorthand. We could refer to films and actors in films without even remembering the names of the actor. But at first, Bob started to bring me people that were spot on. He brought me Roy Scheider, who had never made a film. And Roy Scheider came into my office, sat down. I looked at him and I knew instantly he was the right guy for that part. And I said, Roy, what are you doing now? And he said, well, I'm in an off-Broadway play. I said, what's the play? He said, well, it's a Jean Genet play. I said, what part do you have in the play? He said, I play a cigar-smoking nun. I said, that's very interesting. You're hired. He said, what? I said, yeah, you're hired. He said, don't you want me to read something? I said, read what? It's a chase movie. It's a bunch of heavy breathing, you know, and one or two sentences here and there, but mostly it's a visual chase, and that's it. You're perfect for this guy. And I cast him, he was spot on. Another role in that film, I said to Bob Weiner, the guy I wanted to play the character who is the principal drug smuggler from Marseille. His name in the film is Charnier. His name in real life was Jean Jahan. And I said to Weiner, you remember that guy in the Buñuel film called Belle de Jour? Do any of you know the work of Louis Buñuel? If you don't, please leave. Anyway, Belle de Jour is, in my opinion, his greatest film. And there was a guy in that who played a thug, and he had about 3 or 4 day growth of beard. He was a dark guy with a really rough veneer. And I said, remember that guy, to Bob Weiner? He said, oh yeah. I said, let's hire him. And I didn't know his name. And Weiner called me back a little later that day. He said, the guy you want, his name is Fernando Rey, and he's available. What do you want me to do? You want me to bring him in for a meeting? I said, no, hire him. So he hired him. And I went down to Kennedy Airport to pick up Fernando Rey. And in those days, you could go to the gate, you know, right to the gate to meet somebody. You didn't have to go through a militia, you know, and get frisked to go meet somebody. So I went to the gate to meet Fernando Rey, help him with his bags, and take him to his hotel. And I'm watching the people come off the plane. I don't see the guy I'm looking for, but I see a guy who looks familiar. I have seen this guy. And he stopped as he got off the plane and looked around, and I really panicked because he was looking for me, and it was not the guy I had intended. And we introduced ourselves, and I was in shock as I took him to my car, and he had a very sophisticated little goatee, little mustache and a goatee, and he looked like an aristocrat. And the guy he was playing was a dock worker originally on the piers of Marseille. And so I said to him, you know, your goatee, I mean, the guy you're playing was a rough longshoreman. And he said, oh, I could never shave my goatee. I said, well, why not? He said, I have sores all over my face. You'd never want to see my chin. So he said, by the way, he said, you know, I'm Spanish. The name of the movie was The French Connection. And he said, I'm Spanish. I speak very little French. But I can dub it later, because I have worked for Buñuel in other films that were made in France, and I dubbed them into French. And I thought, oh, jeez. I get him to his hotel, where there used to be phone booths in hotels with actual telephones. Remember actual telephones? And I called the production office, and I got Bob Weiner, the casting director, on the phone. I said, you imbecile, you realize what you, he said, what's wrong? I said, this isn't the guy. He said, what do you mean? It's not Fernando Rey? I said, yes, it's Fernando Rey, but he's the wrong guy. He's not the actor I'm looking for. He said, what do you want me to do? I said, fire this guy. Go out and find the guy who was in Belle de Jour and hire him. Anyway, by the time I got back to the office, we learned that the name of the guy we were actually looking for was Francisco Rabal, who also had made films with Buñuel. He was in Belle de Jour. He was the guy I was looking for. But he too was Spanish, spoke very little French, absolutely no English, and he wasn't available. So I had to go with Fernando Rey, who was absolutely wonderful in the film, much to my amazement. And I learned to trust the movie guy, because Fernando Rey and other things that have happened to me in my film work are really nothing, have nothing to do with my competence, let alone genius. They were gifts of the movie guy.